believe it is this one here. All right, does everybody see that?
Yep.
Perfect. I'm going to try to minimize Zoom over here, then I'll be set to roll. So thanks for that. It sounds like you guys have a pretty awesome group. I'm a huge Pink Floyd fan as well, so I love that. And I also love the global view you guys have at Amazon. I'll talk about this in a second. I did spend a lot of time working across every geography that Amazon was in and have a big appreciation for our global audience and global cultures and other things. So, but with that, I'll go ahead and jump into this. It's going to be a pretty full presentation, so we'll go from there. All right, anyway, thank you. I'm Trent Gillespie. I'm the founder of Day One Innovation, a firm to guide companies on growth and technology innovation practices. I'm going to give you a lesson on growth and innovation lessons I learned from Amazon in my 9 years there. If I can switch slides, there we go. I created today's presentation after thinking about the challenges startups have and what information I can share to help them launch and create long-term continuous growth. This is a little bit different for me since I've been focused on helping existing companies scale and add additional products after their first successful ones. So I've come up with 3 different lessons I learned at Amazon that I think are relevant to startups. And I've also added some detailed suggestions on how I think you can actually be better than Amazon in growth and innovation. Certainly we'll have some time at the end for questions. As Derek said, just put the questions you have into Zoom chat. And then do note, I've got a ton of content here. This is a really broad topic, and so you might want to take notes, and I think it's being recorded so you guys can refer to it afterward. Finally, Amazon hates PowerPoint, okay? And I start with this because I hate it as well. And so my presentations are typically very simple. You're not going to get a bunch of fancy graphics and motion and all these things moving around. It'll be pretty much just PowerPoint, bullets, and talk, a few graphics in there in a couple places. But that is a really good first takeaway for startups. PowerPoint is not good for using information, sharing information, and making good database decisions. So that's your first tip. All right, moving on here. A few things about me. I have been in technology leadership over 20 years, from small companies to, of course, Amazon is very large. I have an MBA from Seattle University here in their executive leadership program. At Amazon, I was there for almost 9 years, and I retired from there last year and decided to start my own company to help companies innovate better. So that's why I'm talking to you guys today. The overall theme of my career is, well, most people are interested in my career at Amazon. And so the overall theme there was I drove a lot of global growth and innovation for Amazon. I did do this for the entire company at points in time, and I did this for a lot of individual businesses. I did this through 3 different roles. The first is I spent about 3 years managing the finance operations global technology portfolio. I don't know if you guys have people involved in fintech who might find that interesting. It doesn't sound super interesting, but I'll tell you it's a big challenge. I was responsible for the technology to make Amazon receive and pay billions and billions of dollars accurately. And that's across trillions of transactions globally. The most interesting thing in this role is I became the global point of contact for every business and product expansion at Amazon across the board. The reason for that was pretty straightforward. Everything requires money. And so if you had a new business idea, you needed to go get money for it, and you wanted to expand to a new geography or do something different with money, basically you had to come to me. And so that gave me a really broad view as to what Amazon was doing, how it made decisions, and how it innovated, and a lot of local issues if you're going to be expanding your products to different geographies. After that, I spent 3.5 years leading the last mile technology portfolio as well. So I did this instead of doing it broadly for Amazon, I focused on just delivery. Last mile technology is actually responsible for getting your Amazon packages to your doorstep. And there's a lot involved in that. I was able to really be part of the initial launch team. And just recently, Amazon announced that they've exceeded FedEx and will be the largest last mile provider in the world with this function. So that was very interesting, working across all the delivery businesses. And then finally, I spent about 2 years setting up the Alexa privacy function. And so this was defining what Alexa meant for Amazon and for Alexa, and putting in technology and compliance standards to meet all customer promises and regulations globally, from GDPR to CCPA and COPPA and whatever else. So a pretty broad view of how to innovate, take innovation globally, and grow a company. So that's super high level. here's my graphics. So this is probably almost the only graphics you'll see in my presentation. So some businesses and things I supported. The big gray vans you guys are probably seeing around if you're in the United States or UK, where those are most prevalent. Of course, you're probably familiar with several of these brands. AWS, I worked on supporting a lot of their new businesses, a lot of delivery stuff. Amazon Flex is the Uber of Amazon delivery. Alexa, of course, Amazon Fresh. I was responsible for the project that made Amazon Fresh profitable for the first time. Uh-oh, and my Alexa's going off in the room. Let me go and hit that real quick, sorry. All right, she's muted, always a problem for me. All right, so moving on, why do I start with Amazon as a growth story? Beyond my experience, I do think that Amazon has the most, sorry, she's just continuing to talk over here. All right, Amazon has the most growth on a continuous basis than any company I'm aware of in the history of the world. Okay, so some stats on it, because Amazon really loves data. Amazon has had 30% average revenue growth every year on average since 1994. Okay, every single year. That's cumulative, or not cumulative. It accumulates. They've also had 30% average revenue growth in the last 5 years. Over the last, or since 1994, there's only been a single year they've had less than 20% revenue growth. Back in 2001. Okay. Moving forward, since 2014, when Amazon made an intentional focus to profitability, they have grown revenue over 500%, operating profit 630%, free cash flow 1,500%, while growing the employee base over 1,000%. And so it's super notable that they're able to actually create revenue and profit and free cash flow through all these innovations. Now, if you don't like data, here's the graph. You can see Amazon has the typical hockey stick of growth that any startup would love to have. And you can actually see that it's just continued to accelerate. Okay. If you're don't like numbers and graphs, you can also just look at products. I listed some of the products that Amazon has innovated around and created, and there's a bunch. Amazon's got retail markets in 16 places, although it sells to over 100 different countries. It's got tons of consumer-facing products and enterprise-facing products as well. Obviously, people are aware of things like Amazon Web Services, but there's also quite a few others. Amazon Business, Amazon Shipping to replace FedEx. Advertising is a new thing. There's just a whole bunch out there. So Amazon has continued to create more and more innovation. I think even when you compare it to a Microsoft or Facebook or Google, there's just more innovation and growth at Amazon than anywhere else. So the question always is, how did it do it? Okay. I've got a very simple answer than a lot of detailed answers on that. Amazon did it at a simple level on building a culture of continuous innovation. Okay, and I'll describe this in just a second here, but basically one product is not enough to grow long-term. You have to figure out how to create continuous, successful products to grow. And that's what Amazon did, and I think what you can model after. When I talk to startups, you know, it's interesting. They actually say, well, Amazon's the biggest company in the world. Why would we model after them, right? And it's interesting because I think of Amazon as the world's biggest startup. It's actually more of an accelerator at this point. And so it's a combination of thousands of different startups that are always competing against each other and against the marketplace. That's one thing people don't realize. Every new opportunity identified is set up like a startup. So a group gets together and they say, hey, we've got this great idea. They get the leadership to buy in. Leadership says, hey, I'll give you $5 million, you go do it. And then they go figure out and come up with a way to do it. And they do this the Amazon way. And I'll talk about that in a few minutes here, how that works. One key part of the culture, and again, another tip you can take away, is everybody's job is innovation. And so Amazon, even when you're hiring, they ask questions about how well do you innovate? And they try to get a kind of judgment on that to hire people who continue to innovate and grow for the company. And then, of course, they measure it every single year in your performance reviews. So it's an innovation-based culture. So a couple lessons. I'm going to start with the first one I've got here, which is always start with the customer, not the technology. A lot of startups, I think, have great ideas of technology they want to bring, maybe problems they want to solve, but several of them, many of them, get very much into the technology as the goal and then try to adapt it to a marketplace. That doesn't work very reliably. You've got to start with the customer first. I've got a couple of quotes here that I like. First one's actually from Steve Jobs, and I like this because he said this in 1997, before Jeff Bezos. He said, you've got to start with the customer experience and work backwards towards the customer. And then Jeff Bezos came out, and since about 1999, he's been saying, determine what your customers need and work backwards. So it's awesome. You've got two of the most notable inventors and innovators saying exactly the same thing. And I think that means something. Amazon took this forward and created what's referred to as the Amazon working backwards process. If we were in person, this is where I'd have people raise their hands about who's heard of the process. It is somewhat known, but I'm going to run through a few details on it in case people aren't. What it is every project starts with a one-page written press release. It's fake and typically for something about what your vision is for that product when it will launch. It's one page, and so it's easy to read. It's written in a very simple format, just as if you could, publicize it through the New York Times or whatever media you're attentive to. In that press release, you show, or should not say show, but you outline what the desired future product solution is, and you state the compelling benefit for the customer. And then you follow that one page with a number of frequently asked questions. And these could span anything from what would this look like with mockups or a prototype to how are you going to implement it with your phasing of your product. And so these can be quite large. But the important thing here is after you do this, you have to actually, or before you get approved to do work, you have to complete this process. Okay. Everything starts with this. There's some benefits to it. It increases customer focus, again, with that idea of working from the customer, right? So you're very clear who your customer is, and you're very clear on what the benefit is that you're going to give them. And so that is probably the most important thing you can do to set any new product or business up for success. It also, in a large organization or with stakeholders, allows you to create alignment because everybody can read the same document and agree that that is what they're after. If you've been in technology for a while, I'm sure you've probably seen everything breaks down when you start implementing when people have different ideas of what the outcome is supposed to be. And so this helps address that problem. Finally, it preserves knowledge and background. So if you have new people joining your team, you're scaling very quickly, you can just hand them this one document and now they're up to speed on what you're trying to do. And it answers a lot of the questions that they might have about how you're trying to accomplish it. Okay? So it's really good that way. Now, there are some problems with it. It's an unstructured approach to identifying customer benefit. What I mean by that is you get a group of people together, they all agree that there's a good idea. It doesn't mean it's a good idea for the customer. It doesn't mean the customers want it. It just means you've got a bunch of like-minded thinkers agreeing on something, right? So it may or may not turn out. The working backwards process may be really slow. I've actually seen this take up to a year to write one of these documents, which is crazy. It also requires good writing skills, which many people actually don't have. And so it is a really useful process. If you're interested in it, you can find some sample templates online. You can just search for Amazon working backwards and you'll get a bunch of templates. I do really recommend it, at least to start. Now, what I have learned is that there is something a little bit better that I combine with it. So that's my first tip for you guys. There's a thing in innovation circles referred to as jobs to be done theory. And this is actually probably the number one thing I will tell you that I hope you can understand and follow. And I'm always surprised that very few people in technology is aware of it. Maybe people here are on this call are aware, but I'm gonna run through it anyway. So what this is a theory around customers don't buy a product just to have it. They buy a product to make progress against a job they have. Now, this theory was established actually over 20 years ago. I think it was with Drucker. It's been followed up with a number of academic articles. It's actually, when you look at it, the basis of other theories. You've got Eric Reed's Build, Measure, Learn, Lean Startup stuff. You've got blitz scaling. they all basically come down to the same idea. And so I think it's useful to think about as jobs to be done. A great product starts with identifying what the job is the customer has. The classic example of this is customers don't buy a 1/4-inch drill. They buy a drill to make a 1/4-inch hole, right? It's a very simple example, but you've got to be focused on what the outcome is your customers want. When I've talked to startups before, this is often a problem, especially if they're coming to whatever their business is from a technology view, because a lot of times they've identified this cool new technology or way of approaching technology, but they haven't identified who they can sell it to. Okay, so you've got to be very clear about what that quote unquote job is. I wanted to run through an example of this as it relates to Amazon and the Amazon Kindle. Now, this is a little bit dated because Kindle's been around for a number of years now, but I think this is a helpful example. The way a lot of companies approach product development is they actually consider it from the product view, the kind of classic, I'm a product manager and I'm going to go create a new product. And so if you're considering the Kindle from a product view, a leader might say, hey, we want to go and create an electronic reading device. Great, an ebook. And if you guys are familiar with what different companies did, you saw various ebooks out there. Barnes & Noble created an ebook, right? And you can be successful that way, but it's a very easy way for somebody to outcompete you. Instead, if you're able to take a job view, a job might be find and read books anywhere. Okay. Now, if we can play this out just a little bit, if you go down the product view of electronic reading device, it's going to make you focus on things like product features. How does your product differentiate itself from what your competitors have? It will have you focus on things like technical improvements. I can make my product faster than somebody else or brighter than somebody else. But they're very much narrowly focused on your product. Okay, and so it actually limits the scope of innovation that you can go for. If you take this jobs view, find and read books anywhere, it gives you a huge variety of areas you can innovate. So in this example, you can innovate around the method of finding books. So Amazon did this. They innovated around creating the Kindle itself. You can find books through the Kindle on the Amazon store, in a library, and I do this all the time. I actually go to my library and then I get it on my Kindle book for free or my Kindle device for free. You can have Alexa purchase books for you, right? There's a large variety of ways you can get content that way, and you can create new innovations around each individual one of these, right? So the scope is big. Whoops, you can take it further. You can figure out innovative ways to read. So again, you've got your Kindle. You can read Kindle books on your smartphone and a web browser. You can have Alexa read to you. Again, whole new ways you can innovate. And then anywhere, you can read at the pool, in the dark, on an airplane, right? And so if you define the job first, not the product, you get a much broader ecosystem of potential ideas you can go and grow against. And so a lot of people, especially in startups, think about product market fit. I actually don't call it that. I call it job product market fit. You should not consider product market fit until you've figured out the job. And so I start with each person. You need to go and ask yourself today, and again, this is where I think it'd be probably the most useful thing I can give you a tip on. Define what is the job that your individual product is fulfilling for your customers. I would take that as an exercise, take it yourself, take it to your team, go and answer it. Here's a couple tips on answering that. Typical jobs, 3 to 5 words. You do a verb, an objective, and a clarifier. Okay, what are you trying to do? Jobs have lasted for a very long time. And so the benefit of going with a job that's lasted for 50 years and will last for 50 more, like reading a book or getting content or educated, whatever it may be, is you don't have to sell people on the fact they need to buy your product. You just need to make it easier for them to do than the ways that they're satisfying that job today. That's where technologists can come in place. That's what Amazon did on the whole, is they haven't really invented that many brand new things. They just figured out new ways to deliver on these jobs. So that's where you get the most potential for innovation, figuring out new ways to bring technology to solve the same things that have been around forever. Okay. All right, my second lesson for you guys. Innovation is what drives growth. innovation and growth basically can be the exact same word as far as I go. Innovation is what provides product and service differentiation. It provides access to your new customers and creation of new markets, increases organizational long-term sustainability, protects against increased global competition. So you need to know how to innovate if you want to grow. Now, as it relates to Amazon, this is one of the most important key learnings from Amazon. Amazon has actually published its strategy for years and years. I think even starting in 1999, and it stayed the same almost the entire time. And they say it all the time. I actually like how Jeff Bezos told people about this in a speech he gave in 2019. He said, our culture is 4 things, and you could replace the word culture with strategy. Customer obsession instead of competitor obsession. Again, that goes directly back to what I started with working backwards. You've got to start with customers. Willingness to think long-term with longer investment horizon than peers, right? You can't focus on just what you're doing this year. You need a long-term goal in mind that you innovate for. Eagerness to invent, which of course goes hand in hand with failure. This is innovation. And so he's really saying right here, we will grow through innovation. And then finally, taking pride in operational excellence. And operational excellence is how Amazon drives down costs. This, with these 4 principles, is really Amazon's model. It's that simple, and you guys could potentially just replicate that with whatever you're trying to do. It's been proven to work. A little bit more on Amazon's culture of innovation. I already covered they orient to the customer with the working backwards methodology. They set innovation as the core strategy. They also go further and build innovation into each organizational element. For example, I already mentioned they hire employees who demonstrate it. They also do things like in their cultural values, they outline innovation or related values that they put up on walls. They measure you with during your performance reviews. They mention in meetings terms like think big and invent and simplify. These are organizational values. And they come up in every meeting, say, hey, that idea doesn't seem big enough. Or, hey, it seems like you're making this too complex. Let's sit down and simplify this. Or what can we do to invent around this? And so they use these terms as part of their culture to continue that generation of innovative ideas. They create decentralized organizations for speed. It's very proven. If you want to move fast, you need to be decentralized. And again, I'm not really, I can talk about a lot of different things. One key thing I think as it relates to startups in this world is you also need your technology to be decentralized. That means microservices. There's something unique to Amazon. They also spend hugely to experiment. They spent $40 billion on R&D in 2020, right? And so that what they do is they come up with a bunch of good ideas, they fund them, they throw a lot of money at them and hope that they succeed. Again, it's kind of like that accelerator model. Now, when Amazon does it, they've got big, deep pockets and they can make a lot of stuff happen, but a lot of it actually fails. I never recorded it while I was at Amazon, the number of failed projects or projects that don't result in return on investment, but it is pretty significant. So one way you can improve how effective your growth is and your innovation is to understand innovation. That's why I'm focusing on it here for you. There are some important things about this. First, you should note it's been repeated over 20 years. Over 90% of projects typically fail to provide any return on investment. My guess is at Amazon, it's probably in the 50 to 60% range. And that surprises people when I tell them that at Amazon, 50% of that $40 billion probably is wasted. It's insane. At smaller companies, it's probably worse, right? The ongoing failure rates are typically 90%. Now, this is often measured at existing companies, but it also turns out 90% of startups are going to fail within 10 years. And I think it's 50% fail within 5 years on average. So it's again that 90% failure rate. And what's interesting to me and why I decided to focus most on growth and innovation is startup failures are due to failures in innovation. When it comes down to it, almost all of the failures are just failures in innovation. But again, what I find interesting is basically no businesses actually study it or manage it as a competency. And that's what I'm trying to change. Companies will go and hire people for product management or HR or accounting. And those are helpful for sure, but they don't have the impact as innovation itself. And so getting people who are familiar with it is tremendously valuable. So I'm gonna give you guys a little bit more of a background on innovation that I hope will resonate with you. First, when I talk about innovation, and if I go to a new group of people, nobody even understands what I mean because innovation has become such a buzzword. You know, you can buy innovative toothbrushes, innovative toilet paper, innovative anything, right? So I start with the terms here. Innovation is a new idea, device, or method, or the act or process of introducing new ideas, devices, and methods. So I put in bold the second part of this because that's really the key thing is how do you get good at introducing new ideas? That is the competency you need to figure out. When you do that, you can be tremendously effective. And again, that's what Amazon did. When I say innovation, a lot of people get confused with invention. It's not invention, although invention can be part of innovation. Invention is creating something new for the first time ever. It could be an idea, a technology, whatever else. As an example, the first telephone was an invention. The first smartphone is an innovation. And this is, I'm being a little bit pedantic in calling this out, but it's important to really understand because inventions have been found that they often take at least a decade to get to $100 million in market share. Right? The time frames change a bit now with the speed of technology advancement, but inventing something takes a lot of resources and time. And even if you look at Amazon or any large company, most of the items that they're taking to market and doing well with were not inventions. They didn't invent, Bluetooth speakers, right? They didn't invent how to record your voice and take action on it. Those concepts existed. They put them together and created Amazon Alexa, right? So your question is still, how do you identify a job? How do you solve it in new ways with technology? Focusing on invention is extremely risky. I don't know if people here are doing that, probably some of it. I'm gonna go a little bit deeper here. There are two categories of innovation that you should know about as you're thinking about setting up your organizations and your products. These two words are sustainable innovation and disruptive innovation. Sustainable innovation means improvement of existing products and services in existing markets. Okay. A lot of innovation for startups, they do focus on sustainable innovation. This might be figuring out a new way to improve an existing product. I think I saw one of your companies was focused on electric motorcycles. I could be wrong on that. I would consider that to be a sustainable innovation. It's taking one existing technology and applying it to an existing market. The thing is with these, market sizes and impact are predictable. They're typically less risk. You just need to really figure out that job, product, market fit. They're often based on adapting ideas one product to another. And to improve these, you just really need to focus on improving ideation and execution. Okay. How fast you can do it and accuracy of doing it before other people becomes how you win in sustainable innovation. It's all about speed and accuracy, experimentation to get there. A couple examples in the Amazon world, making Alexa play music from Amazon Prime Music or Spotify. Again, Alexa existed, Amazon Prime Music and Spotify existed. They just put them together. Sustainable innovation. Improving Alexa wake word detection. You can improve the technology around how she listens for when you say her name. There's a lot of work that's gone into it. Again, it's not an invention, it's a sustainable innovation. Disruptive innovations. Now, this is really the golden goose for startups, right? Disruptive innovations are brand new ideas or applications of an existing idea, but it creates a new value proposition altogether. You could also call that a new marketplace. Okay. This is a super important idea here. They target non-consumers, oftentimes. This is a very good concept, I think, especially for startups, you should understand. There's two types of well, let me come at it this way. When you're creating a new product, a lot of people will say, oh, well, there's already people buying this product and I can make it better. Again, that is the sustainable innovation. in many ways. Non-consumers are creating a market where nobody was previously consuming something. That is where you get the most potential return for your ideas. Looking not where people are buying your product or a similar product making it better, but where can you create an entirely new consumer from scratch? And when you figure that out, that's when you disrupt existing industries, right? And so another exercise for you guys to go and think about is, who are your non-consumers and can you go after them? That will give you the biggest growth potential. Now, characteristics of disruptive innovations, they typically start out half-baked. So they don't start out very good as you discover what the market is and start trying to draw new consumers. And they often underperform as you're figuring that out. And that's fine, because you're figuring out your steps forward. The markets are typically unpredictable. When something brand new is being created, nobody knows what the size is going to be. And that means you have a big opportunity as a startup, because incumbent firms are going to not want to invest in it because they're trying to get fixed returns. So it's a great opportunity for startups. A couple examples. A classic example is Blockbuster versus Netflix. Okay, streaming was disruptive. Blockbuster knew about it very early on, and they decided they didn't want to go and address it. They didn't want to innovate around it because it had lower margins than their existing business. And they said, why would we want to go and create a product that has lower margins? That, of course, was very short-sighted, right? Creation of the Amazon Kindle ebook we talked about, right? There were non-consumers for that until they got it in place. It was very much loved, and now it's it disrupted that industry and has become pretty revolutionary. So startups, I recommend you really think about how you can use disruptive innovation. It has the highest potential return. It's easier to compete in. And very importantly for this group, there are best practices about how to conduct disruptive innovation better. I don't have time in the presentation to go through all of these, but they do exist, and there's ways to structure this to make it fast and effective. A lot of it has to do with iteration, experimentation, quick decision making. I think Derek and I, when I first joined the call, we're talking about that a bit. You've got to move very quick if you want to make this happen, and experiment. All right, I'm going to move into my next one here. Lesson number 3, innovation is cumulative. Okay, one innovation can result in one-time success, but it's ongoing innovation that provides compounded and exponential growth. It's very tough as a startup, I think, to start thinking about the future products you're going to create. You might have an idea of what you're going to be doing 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, but you really need to get that figured out, because that one product you're working on today is not going to be enough for you. Okay, so you need to focus on small and iterative innovations instead of those big bets, especially if you're going in a disruptive space. Now, as it relates to Amazon, again, as a lesson, I'm going to talk about this book here called Good to Great, written by Jim Collins. It's a little bit dated now. It was released in 2001. Many people in business have read this, although I find fewer and fewer these days because it is a little bit dated. It was based on research where the authors went and studied companies that had 15 years of poor growth and then had 15 years of 300% growth compared to the market. And they tried to figure out what made these companies grow so well. And the reason I bring this up here is, before the book was released, the authors met with Jeff Bezos and the executive team at an offsite. And when they did, Jeff was so interested and intrigued by this book, he based Amazon on it. And again, many people don't recognize it, but if you want to really understand how Amazon has done what it's done, go back and read this book. And so I'm going to go over just one of the concepts from it. And it's this. I'm not going to go through this whole presentation or this whole thing here. I'm just going to highlight one thing. Let me pull up my laser pointer here. So this is a concept that summarizes the whole book, but what I'm trying to show here is this flywheel. So what the authors found is, when they studied all these companies, there was never one individual product or innovation or idea that created their growth. In every situation, it was a series of improvements that resulted in that growth. And that caused them to come up with this idea of a flywheel. And what that idea is that as you pile innovation after innovation on each other, eventually they're going to go slow at first, but the momentum is going to increase. And all of a sudden, you're going to start to get that hockey stick of growth. And they've seen this time and time again. And so my feedback to startups is generally, again, don't go after that big bet. Figure out what your long-term goal is, who your customer is, what that job is, and get very fast iterations to accomplish it. Now, as it relates to Amazon again, Amazon at that meeting he had with Jeff Bezos had with the leaders or the authors of that book, they came and created Amazon's flywheel at that meeting. They came out of the meeting, they sat down, they put it up on the board and created this. And this has stayed almost the same since. And again, this is a really great example. I think you guys could go and build your own flywheels for. So I'm going to go through this in a little bit of detail to show you how this works. So Amazon first, their long-term strategy is growth. And I call this out because people don't understand this. People, originally thought of Amazon as a retail company. It's still it's considered a retail company by Wall Street. They've thought about it in a lot of different ways, but it is a growth company. They're trying to figure out how to repeatedly grow, and they will grow in any market they can. There's never been a company that's tried something similar to this. And so they said, well, we can grow if we can do these things. They identified 4 levers. First over here, they wanted a great customer experience. And they figured, hey, when we have a great customer experience, we're going to attract customers. So that's going to bring traffic to our website here. And the more traffic we have is going to drive more sellers to us, right? Because they're going to want to sell to all these customers. And the more sellers we have is going to increase our product selection, right? And the more product selection we have is going to draw more customers. And it goes in this self-reinforcing cycle here that if they innovate in any of these individual areas, it creates that incremental momentum for them. Right? And then they added in the flywheel to give it an extra spin. They said, hey, if we can get to a really low cost, that's going to have the effect of lowering prices, which again is going to improve our customer experience. Amazon's entire strategy can basically be shown in this one picture. And it became powerful enough for Amazon that they have trained people on this for years. And when you start a new product, although it's been a little bit less common in the last few years, when you would start a new business, a new product, the first thing that they would have you do as part of your press release was put an FAQ of what is your flywheel. And so there'd be a similar flywheel for Amazon Alexa or delivery or whatever your product was. Because once the leaders agreed that these were the levers and what your flywheel should look like, they would let you run. And then as a decentralized organization, you would just go execute and tell them how you're doing. That is what has provided this type of growth, right? It's that continuous investment that and in innovation that provides it. So I'm going to give you my last kind of detailed innovation tip. I just need to turn that off. All right. So a lot of firms, when they start thinking about the products they want to create, they start with product differentiation. Hey, I want to come up with this product that's going to be a little bit different from a product a competitor has. And that's great. You can get some customers that way. But it's also the easiest thing for somebody to copy. So again, you can get in the door with it, but somebody's going to copy it and you're going to have a competition very, very quickly. So if you want to win, you need to innovate differently than others, especially if you want to disrupt. Ideally, you need multiple disruptive products if you want successful disruptive long-term growth. Okay, I call it like this. Innovation is just like the stock market. You get the best returns when you diversify. Again, that means no big bets, break it down into incremental improvements. And it's even simple to do this. And this is one of the things I found interesting, I guess as a side aside. Out of every product manager, tech leader, business leader that I've worked with, and there's been hundreds, thousands probably, not a single one has known about the innovation concepts that I'm telling you about right now. Although, I guess to qualify that, I had somebody reach out to me recently I worked with 3 or 4 years ago who told me that they actually were now using the same concepts. And so I think that what I'm telling you here is tremendously powerful if you can go and learn these things and incorporate them. And one of the things that's valuable is this. Now, there's a lot here I'm going to talk about very briefly. This is a whole conversation and session. There's a research team that went and did study on innovation to figure out how to make innovation better. And they looked at a bunch of innovations that existed and they categorized them. And so what they did is they said there's really 10 types of innovation. You can innovate in profit model, network, structure, process, product performance, product system, service, channel, brand, and customer engagement. And they looked at the companies that did this and found that the more of these you innovate in, the more growth you have. And it makes it harder to compete against. And they even went far enough, and this is what I like over here, you guys probably can't see this. They actually created a recipe book. Maybe I can zoom in here. They said, okay, if you were going to, so like say product performance. So again, a lot of companies start in product performance. This is where you're trying to differentiate your product from somebody else. You start here and you can look down. How can you do it? You add functionality, you customize your product, you make it easier to use. So they've given a recipe book of how you can innovate in that type, okay? And so what you need to do if you want to grow is you may start in product performance, but if you really want to get effective and grow, you need to grow to these other areas. So can you create multiple products by creating a product system, right? Can you create more services with professional services, customizations, and other things? Or can you go the other direction, go and figure out a new profit model? This is a lot of what Amazon has done, right? Can you create a new value network with partners? And the more of these you do, it gives higher return. This is research, again, from the same company. The more, if you have 5 types of innovation that you're using on your product or business, they found on average, you're getting twice the returns of the stock market. And then you can see 3 and 4 types down here, 1 to 2 types down here. So you need to know of this concept. And again, it's very easy to go and say, hey, the next area we want to expand into is, I don't know, profit model. We want to change the profit model. Let's put that on the roadmap for next year. Put these things together. All right, so here we go. Amazon's success is a result of it investing in every innovation type. I actually charted these, and every single one of those 10 types of innovation, Amazon has made improvements in. And they've done that for every single business. That is what has enabled them to scale. And importantly, I think you can follow that same approach yourselves, especially as you're starting up and figuring out your long-term strategy. All right, so that's basically it. I've got one last slide here. My services for my plug. What my plan is with my business, and I just kicked it off last year, is every company is handling innovation differently, and they're all at different levels of maturity. So what I refer to myself is as an innovation guide to help figure out how you can move yourself to the next step and just improve your innovation. I do offer executive team training and how to adopt Amazon and other growth and technology practices. So I'll leave it here on questions. I put down some questions here. I didn't cover a whole bunch of different things. Happy to also talk about things like global expansion, logistics, product and development, organizational design, regulatory compliance, privacy. And then there's my email address. So I will stop here and take any questions.
It's always that awkward pause for who's going to ask one first, isn't it, Trent?
Yeah, and I can always talk about a lot more stuff. I've got examples and other things too. So,
Anika, do you have any questions? I know you always like to talk about things when we have our conversations. Is there anything that you want to talk about?
Oliver, go ahead, ask your question.
No, well, thanks a lot for the presentation, Trent. I think that one of the big things that is a difference between American startups and European startups is that you don't have the deep pockets at start that when you are US finance you may have, and Amazon has got a great track record and all that, but was actually negative or in the red for a long period of time, you know, being some sort of category killer, created this sort of vortex, and then, you know, created all this positive circle and all that. So I think that you're very right in the element of being fast at innovating and being fast to market. But that's where we've got the vicious circle that we are trying to break here at GSD by finding the proper finances in order to enable us to go faster.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's a very notable problem. It does take resources for sure, right? One of the things that I've seen time and time again, though, is people try to just do too much, right? There's a startup I've been talking to, and they've got some really interesting ideas. And she had a very small team of 6 people, okay? And when she came to me, she wanted advice because they were trying to do 4 different products with 6 people, right? And those are the types of things you got to figure out as a startup to say, how can I identify that one thing I can do that's going to be effective and focus on just that and do it quickly? Because a lot of these things, they don't really take a ton of effort. You just have to figure out what that right thing is. Okay, so don't go off in 4 different directions if you've only got 5 or 6 people. You know, get one, focus on it, get it out there.
Dren, I had a question about how Amazon measures innovation. Like, could you talk broadly about that, like at the employee level?
Yeah, at the employee level. So at Amazon, so it starts with when you hire people. When you go to Amazon, they've got behavioral based interviewing where there's several questions like, what is the most innovative thing that you've done? Okay, and your candidate has to respond and give an example where Amazon thinks it's an innovative idea, because what they're hiring for are people that have the attributes that will lead to future innovation. And then during performance reviews, what they do is there's a 360 review. You send it out to your colleagues, and they actually will judge you on each of those leadership principles, like invent and simplify and think big. And so when you get judgment and you send out to 20 people and you get 20 people that say you're awesome at think big, there you go, right? That's a good thing. But you might get 20 people that say you suck at think big. And that's obviously something to deal with, right? And so that's how they monitor and measure it at the individual level.
So they reinforce you thinking big.
Oh, absolutely. And it's put up on walls around the office. I mean, it's everywhere. That is one of the unique things about Amazon. And again, I was trying to cram a lot into this presentation, but creating a culture of innovation is the most useful thing to do because it affects every part of your organization. An example of this that I give is when I say everybody's responsible to innovate, the finance group that I was a part of for a while, their job was to get 10% lower in cost every year on a variable cost per unit basis. Okay. So if you go to any company, you told your finance team, you need to cut your budget by 10% every single year. What would they do? They'd just give up. They'd say no. But instead, when you empower them with technology and say that's your expectation, they have to figure out how to innovate. Okay, they have to figure out how to do anything they can, and then they get technology resources and other things. But that's what I mean. It's a job of every individual at the company.
Now, Trent, you mentioned a lot of things about Amazon, and it looks like they did a lot of things right. But you did mention that 90% of 50% of the money they spend on innovation goes to waste. It would help to highlight 1 or 2 things they did wrong so that we can learn from that.
I think I covered this briefly, that Amazon does have a little bit of groupthink. And so when you go through like the press release process, if you get 3 or 4 leaders to agree it's a good idea, they will go and do it. But they haven't come up with a really good way to structure innovation to qualify it's a good idea before doing it. Right. And I think that's a big opportunity. And that's why I focused a bit here on the jobs to be done thing, because you need to qualify these are good ideas that will sell before you do them. And so, I mean, there's been a whole bunch of examples. Of course, Fire Phone is the biggest example. Amazon spent billions of dollars on it, but there's been plenty of others. Amazon Local, it was a competitor to Groupon, put a ton of effort into that for a while. We've got actually just yesterday they announced they're going to shut down all the physical stores that Amazon's been opening outside of grocery. That's going to be a tremendous cost, one I'm actually surprised and disappointed about. But there's also internally, so you guys know Amazon from a external customer perspective. Internally, there is lots of failure. That's what you don't see. You see the successes, right? But internally, there is a lot of projects that get halfway and get canceled due to a priority change, a situation change, new regulation, or a leadership change, whatever it is. If they were better defined and had more confidence about how effective they would be in the marketplace, those projects wouldn't get canceled, right? But you get a leader change and a new leader comes in and says, why are we doing this? Then you cancel it and that team loses whatever, 6 months, a year worth of work, multiple teams worth of work. It's a big deal. And again, that's why I stay so focused on what is the right job to do. I'll give you just one more example here, and I think we're about at time to move over, but Amazon Alexa, I worked in there for 2 years. Amazon's Alexa's biggest opportunity is to define what is it for, and they still haven't done it. And I think if they were to go through the exercise of what is the job Alexa is for, it would reinvent them. I've actually been debating about reaching out to the head of Alexa Experience, so I know, to walk her through this process. As an example, one of my pet peeves that I use in some of these conversations with Amazon Alexa was Alexa poems. Amazon invested a whole bunch of money, millions of dollars, to have Alexa read poems. So you can go to your Alexa today, if you have one, say, Alexa, read me a poem. And she'll read you a poem. That was a waste of money. And I would say, what is the job she's trying to do by reading a poem? There is no job. There's nobody that wants to pay to have Alexa read poems to them. That is a waste of effort, right? And so if they came from that, from the perspective of what is the job to be done, they probably would have identified very early they shouldn't invest the money in Alexa poems.
Trent, could you talk about the one-way door decision, just so
Sure.
the concept, and then Scott has a question as well after that.
For sure. So a big part of innovation and growth is moving very quickly, right? A lot of organizations get delayed in decision making. And so Amazon has developed a number of what they call mechanisms that are intended to help culturally make decisions faster. One of the most notable ones is referred to as the one-way and two-way door. And so what it is a two-way door is a door you can go through, and if it's the wrong door, you can come back out of it. There's no impact, okay? A one-way door is you walk into a door and it locks. You cannot go back to it, okay? Now, the way that this is helpful for decision-making is innovation is all about speed, testing stuff out. And so if you are looking, if you're stuck on a hard decision and you can say, hey, we can back out of this with no effort, right? There's no negative consequence. Let's stop wasting time and debating it. Let's do it, test it. And then if it doesn't work, we've learned something, we can pivot and move a new direction. So do that instead of spending so much time in analysis and delay and consensus building. And only spend that time for consensus building and research when you have a one-way door, okay? When you can't back out of it. Something like raising the price of your service. You know, once you raise your price of your service, you might lose a certain number of customers. You need to make sure you're intentional about it. Does that help?
Yeah, that's great. Scott, what's your question?
Oh man, so a lot of questions, but first, Trent, I want to say a big thank you to this. I'm sure if it's possible, I'm going to watch this presentation, you know, a number of times because it's just so packed and rich. So thanks for playing that out for us. Our company, I think, lands in this world of disruptive innovation for what we're doing. And with that, the things that you've said about the one-page press release really resonate with me, trying to get it all on one page. I don't know if you have any examples of how to kind of do that, but then, you know, I was hoping I could find some and see how you encompass that. So that's number one. Number two, then the summary of that is this idea that you just spoke of. What is the job, right? I'm more of a marketing or a branding brain, so I'm always trying to not just take our technology, but I'm trying to take our technology and show it as the benefit for that customer, right? And that is a constant challenge because there isn't always one answer. So I've really grabbed onto the what is the job idea. So do you have examples for what is the job with some of those more popular products? And are they, maybe the loaded question here is, they may not be as the same as the tagline, what you'd say to the consumer, right? But it's more clear on the innovation side of it, know the job first, and then you can ladder to it.
Yeah. Amazon didn't use this concept internally, right? When I left Amazon, I said, what did I reflected on what I wanted to do. And then I figured out, okay, I want to look and see how I can do this better. And that's where I found the jobs to be done thing. So I don't have an example from Amazon of how they used it because they didn't. And that's where I think Amazon can really improve. I'm actually talking actively to several groups at Amazon about these same concepts, right? I'm actually working on a working backwards V2 is what I call it, that incorporates a couple of these things that I might be selling back to Amazon. We'll see. But I can send you guys some templates. I'll be happy to share those afterward on it. I think I do have a template on jobs to be done. There's books, there's online materials. There's one interesting thing that I found is, I was in technology and big companies doing this stuff for years. Innovation was just not a focus as a competency. And I addressed that in the presentation. There is a ton of really good information there that for whatever reason, the technology or industry has just said, we're innovative. We don't need to have any other information out here, right? I don't get it now. And if I would have known about these concepts earlier in my career, it would have made a huge difference. I told a VP at Amazon the other day that if I would have known this while I was at Amazon, I probably would have made an extra $1 billion for the company somehow or another, right? They're that powerful. And there's a lot of material out there. So you can search for jobs to be done. There's books on it. There's Harvard Business Review articles on it. There's videos on it. There's plenty of information out there, but I'm happy to send you some materials too.
No, that one I can find. I didn't see anything in my quick search for the Amazon internal press release idea, but
yeah, I've got one. I can send it out.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
So one last question from Henri.
Hello, Trent. Thank you for this very valuable talk what you have. My question is that about this disruptive innovation, and you said that who are our non-consumers. So how I think that how much Amazon has used, education, or how you have educated these consumers to use your products because they have maybe don't know them, as you mentioned. How much that is required?
Interesting. Amazon has a unique position in the market that anytime it does something, it gets attention, right? So if it releases any new product, people are going to see it and probably try it out, but it still struggles with it. Actually, one of the products that Amazon has created, I love, and I'm worried they're going to cancel, is called Amazon Explore. It's virtual tourism. I was part of the beta on it. Nobody's heard of it. I bet nobody in this audience has heard of it because they have not promoted it. But it is an entirely new disruptive product that's amazing. And so they struggle too. It's hard to get new concepts out there. They do take a lot of effort to educate and market. Amazon should be doing better on that one, but they don't have it figured out always either. But if you guys are interested, go look into Amazon Explore. It's super cool.
Yeah, I will do that. Yeah, thanks.
Hey, Trent, just because it's newsworthy and someone brought it up, do you have an insight on the shuttering of the retail locations, on what they didn't do? Did they not look back at their job or the customer obsession on that one?
No, it's actually a fantastic product, and I was very surprised to see it. Honestly, my perspective on it is the only reason they're shutting it down is due to antitrust concerns. That's it. There's, I was on the delivery side, and one of the biggest costs for Amazon is returns, right? and the shipping returns and things. And so one of the benefits of those local stores is they provide a very easy and cheap way to do returns. And so there's multiple benefits for them to have these stores in place. I guarantee they could be profitable. So really the only valid reason I can come up with why they're shutting them is they thought that closing those stores would put them under less trust scrutiny. That's my bet.
Interesting.
Wow.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. So we're going to switch to AirMeet. Don't let it scare you. Just click the link, and you do have to like log in, but once you log in, you're there. And then there's virtual tables. And like I said, Gary, Nick, Trent, and I will all be at each one table. You can sit at the one you want, and then we'll rotate around so we can hopefully get to touch everybody. Let me just, on behalf of everybody in the GSD family, thank you so much, Trent. We really appreciate it. And, you know, we'll tell you at the AirMeet, but I just wanted to take the time to say thank you to that. And I will work with Trent to get some of these materials he discussed emailed out to you guys in the next few days. So, all right. So the link is in the Zoom. I'm going to keep the Zoom open so you guys have time to grab that, but then I'm going to go to the AirMeet right now. So thank you, everyone. I'll see you in AirMeet.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.
There's no tables appearing yet.
Yeah, just give me a second. I got to start it.
Hello, Henry. Oops. Can you hear me? It's because.
Does anyone have the problem of not being able to push the submit button? It seems it's not taking entering the room.
That's a little odd. Okay, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm not sure what to tell you either. Maybe just try refresh or something. I'm in there. I don't have a problem. So
Okay. 1 second. Let me try that. Should work now. Thank you.
no problem. Anybody else having a problem here on Zoom?
Yeah, I can't find the room, how to get to the room.
Hi, Yva.ai. I'm stuck.
Okay, so Can you guys see what's going on? Like, do you see this yet?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you can't, if you hit join, you can't join a table?
I don't see that at all on my phone.
I'm not sure about how it works on your phone. Were you able to
You know what? I'm
sign
gonna
in?
log
Like
out to
usually
my
asks you
desktop
kind
now.
of.
Yeah, I'm gonna log out to my desktop now. I apologize.
Okay.
Yeah, you just need to go to the chat room and click the link from the Zoom meeting.
But anyways.
Yeah, no.
So one of the things, go ahead. What are you going to say, Peter?
I was just going to say, I thought it was great. I have some questions for him about that whole customer focused experience and how they iterate on that and how they improve that and how they decide which features to throw out and keep.
Yeah, that's a very good question, because it's easy to say relentlessly focus on the customer.
Yeah.
But how do you